Jimmy.
Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Noreen Kukkonen, and I'm honored to be your worship associate this morning. Welcome, everybody. The title of our service today is Behind the Mask. Who's helped to make this service possible for us. We have a great group of people who are stepping up in ways that make us truly remarkable. I'm proud to be part of this dedicated congregation that strives to live the principles of the Unitarian Universalist faith. Thank you, Pam, Don, Carol, Paul back there, and Candy, and everybody for all your efforts today and always. People in this community give readily of themselves. It's a wonderful thing. You're welcome here no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You're welcome here to join us as we affirm our spiritual quest for spiritual growth. You're welcome to join us as we sing songs that uplift our very beings. You're welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. All are welcome as we worship that which gives each of us meaning and value. No matter what you call this building, this hour, or this gathering of people, we worship as one body. Our gathering music this morning was the theme Masquerade from Phantom of the Opera. The elaborate costume party it describes became popular in 15th century Venice. With the mask, partygoers could depart from their lives and enter into a world of pretend, hiding themselves behind a disguise and taking on another identity. In a creepy short story written by Edgar Allan Poe in 1842, The Mask of the Red Death, wealthy nobles seclude themselves in a prince's abbey to wait out the plague. They feel that their seclusion will protect them from the dangers of the world. As a diversion meant to ease their fears, the prince hosts a party and decorates 7 rooms of the abbey in different colors, very, very colorful. He encourages his guests to make their way through all these rooms and enjoy the different decor. With the guests, a mysterious figure disguised as a Red Death victim joins in and passes with them through each of the rooms. It's a very creepy story, kind of Vincent Price creepy if you remember him. When the prince confronts the stranger, the prince soon dies, and his death is followed by the gruesome deaths of all the other guests. The stranger's costume turns out to contain nothing inside. He is the Red Plague. This allegory has numerous levels of meaning, one of which relates to our sermon this morning. While the guest masks are a defense mechanism meant to mentally relieve them from their fears of the plague, in the end, the mask cannot protect them from the greatest danger. Our gathering music says, masks, hide your face so the world will never find you. Do our masks or facades match who we are inside? Or are they a defense against the pressures of being human? Our guest today, Chaplain John Bloom Ramirez, Master of Divinity, ponders what would happen if our mask and costume don't match, or if they are won't so much, they actually become our identity. Will the world ever know who we are? Will they ever know the real us? We look forward to Chaplain Bloom Ramirez's take on this question in his sermon this morning. I believe the UU principles reflected in this service are numbers 1, 2, and 3. These have to do with acceptance and right relations with oneself as well as with others. In addition, our principle number 2, which calls for compassion in human relations, is reflected in our current food drive to provide staple food to homeless and needy families through South County Outreach. Our speaker next week, who will be with us in our building, will represent this nonprofit agency. Please support the food drive. That's what we Unitarians do. For our chalice lighting this morning, Dara has agreed to come forward and help us with that. Thank you, Dara. Dara always says yes when she's asked to help in this community. A big thank you, Dara. Everywhere on Sunday mornings, Unitarians light the chalice. Please light yours at home if you have one nearby. The chalice represents illumination to the world that we're called upon to serve with love and justice. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this challenge as a symbol of faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. Our centering thought today is from James Baldwin. We fear we cannot live without, and know we cannot live within. Our opening hymn this morning is number 1010, We Give Thanks. Carol Cole, our music director, will play that for us. Carol.
Good morning, everyone. Isn't it a beautiful day? Please join me. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We give thanks for this precious day, for gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
And it is a precious day. We're so lucky to live in this beautiful part of the world. Our affirmation comes next, and please unmute yourself as we recite our beliefs together. May we be
reminded here
of
of our highest aspirations
and
and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service
of
to
humanity.
the altar of humanity.
May we know,
May we know once again
that we
that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
time for the offertory, and in our sanctuary Candy will pass the basket, and we will remind ourselves of why we do this with our slide.
Please join me to sing our offertory song. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
In the spirit of meditation or prayer. Mystery of the universe, ground of our very being, truly it is said that you make the sun rise and the life-giving rains fall on both the just and the unjust. And in this way, yours is an abundant grace, and we give our thanks. But it is also true that none of us are ever really spared, neither the just nor the unjust. For try as we might, we are all still subject to the challenges of pain, death, and separation, to the inherent impermanence of our material existence. And yet, the fact that no one is spared suggests that we are never truly alone, since we all partake in this very ephemeral reality. So may the fact that our shared human condition foster empathy and compassion, mutual loving support. May the stories of all of those who have gone before us, ordinary flesh and blood people just like us, remind us of the deep reserves of courage and strength that lie within each and every one of us. And may the transient and ephemeral nature of life compel us to savor every moment, while also reminding us, particularly in those most trying of times, that this too shall pass. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
John Bloom Ramirez, Masters of Divinity, is a graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School. who's currently working toward fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Theologically, he adopts the term rational mystic. He lives in Mentone, California with his husband, Renee, his adult son, Jordan, and his cat, Rukia, and Polyphemus, the Pomeranian. He just completed a residency at UCSF Medical Center as a chaplain and is eager to continue his work in hospice as well as ministry. Welcome, Chaplain John Bloom Ramirez. We're happy to have you with us again today.
Good morning. So before I start the bulk of my sermon this morning, I wanted to acknowledge that a National Coming Out Day was October 11th, 2021. I feel strongly compelled to honor the struggles of my LGBTQ brethren, especially in this time of political chaos, where our rights as human beings have been threatened by a vocal consensus entranced with the ideals of hyper-evangelical, and I put this in quotes intentionally, Christianity, because I don't believe that that's the way Christ would behave. More and more of us will be forced to wear costumes and masks that don't fit, that aren't us, and that will wear us down. I fear that the vast majority of us that aren't safe in larger, more accepting cities will bury themselves deeper into the proverbial closet, so deep that the costume and the mask that they're forced to wear will become who they are. Segregation, repression, and fear will rule their lives and torment their inner selves. What happens when that costume becomes too much of a burden to bear? What happens when they wake up one morning and realize that they're living behind the lie of the mask and it just isn't worth it any longer? I want to preface this sermon with the hope that this wouldn't be the case, that they wouldn't be forced back into the closet. But it is also to say that I personally will be here for them if they need me. And I hope you will all too. One of my earliest memories from childhood was Halloween. I had just turned 4. I remember my mother and grandmother trying to stuff me into this incredibly uncomfortable outfit that was supposed to be E.T., the extraterrestrial. And for those who might remember the grocery store costumes of the 1980s, these were no picnic. They were made of a heavy plastic, and they usually came with like the character design printed on the outside, and they had this little cheap plastic mask that had a band of elastic that would fit around the head. They were extremely hot. Even more so if your mom insisted on dressing you in warm clothes underneath, never considering the fact that you're wrapped in plastic and that's plenty warm enough. Midway through trick-and-treating, you'd be exhausted, not just from the walking, but from the sweat and the stickiness of the layers of clothing plus that plastic wrapper. I wore that same costume again the next year and the year after that. Blessedly, the jumper tore and became irreparable. Plus, my elementary school banned the masks for those costumes. So Halloween became a time of creativity and ingenuity for my family. My mom started to buy up a bunch of makeup after Halloween was over, and that's what would dictate our costume for the next year. Of course, there was candy. Lots and lots of candy. As we got older, my cousins and I would engineer several costumes for the night in order to score more loot and thereby earn even more treats, which we painstakingly hid from one another in the hopes of making it last until Easter, the next big candy holiday for our family. I grew up in the heart of the San Fernando Valley, just a few miles from Mission San Fernando Rey de España. The people who weren't white in my neighborhood were Mexican American. And it was here at a friend's house that I was introduced to Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. Several of our neighbors would have altars in their backyards or even in their front yards under the portcullis of their homes. And they would have these altars decorated with marigold flowers and just beautiful colors, plates of food, tequila or beers, covered in photos of trinkets of family members long since passed. The most beautiful thing on these altars were sugar skulls, which I remember being horrified but yet intrigued by. The young Mexican girls would revel in having their faces painted like a sugar skull. I now know that this was meant as homage to straddling the place between life and death, kind of fitting for a hospice chaplain. I remember the mother of one of my friends noticing my intense desire for one of those sugar skulls, and she handed it to me. I took it home and placed it on my dresser in a place of honor. I was so excited because it was white and it had these beautiful blue and purple, red flowers and piping painted all over it. And it was just beautifully sculpted. The next morning, however, I woke up to my mother screaming at me because my beautiful sugar skull was covered in ants. I didn't know that sugar skulls were actually made of sugar. Oops. Impermanence. Costumes, masks, and makeup are all part of our everyday life. We are all playing a different role at different times. We are all straddling a fence between one place and another. We might not do it with a makeup or masks, but we do it. Some of us woke up this morning, put on a suit and tie or other carefully chosen outfit, and left our homes to become business people, bankers, computer programmers, or even ministers. Some of us donned a uniform provided by an employer, and with that, we became the server, the grocery checker, or the fast food cashier. Some put on makeup, and they wear it differently for different places. For work, it might be subtle and subdued with neutral tones and careful choices. For many of us, this happens at different times, so we're getting into our costumes in the evening or in the wee hours of the morning. Whatever it is, whenever it is, you're putting on a costume. You're becoming a different version of you. When I wear this collar or this robe, well, when I wear my collar or this robe, for instance, I'm instantly recognized as a minister or maybe a judge. I don't know. But it's hard for people who know me to separate that person from the costume. Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, without wearing any masks that we are conscious of, we have a special face for each friend. I'll go even further and say that we extend those masks to those that we interact with, the people who make up our day, the customers, the employers, the people passing in the street. They all see the mask and the costume that you're wearing, and they too have theirs on. I think about this a lot, though. Are we just changing a costume to grasp for more candy? Are we no better than the ants who devoured my sugar skull, mindlessly working and toiling simply to eat and survive? I wonder if I'm being authentic. As someone who once struggled with square peg, round hole syndrome, as I like to call it, I wonder if I'm being true to myself, to my son, to my husband, to you, this congregation. Am I being me when I put on this outfit this morning, this tie, this shirt, when I don this robe and I came here to speak to you? I've reconciled this because honestly, I feel like those little girls wearing sugar skull makeup, straddling the border between two worlds, a minister still in formation, a chaplain still learning, growing and fitting into my new role, my new costume. Have any of you ever felt this way? Costumes, makeup, and masks shouldn't define who you are. Yes, they're a wrapper, and sometimes they're uncomfortable, but they shouldn't define you. I prefer to think that they should highlight the beauty that is you. They should enforce your desires. They should reflect the image that you want to present to the world. Uniforms, for me, they always became armor. You wear them to express the particular company that you're representing while wearing them, but your face, your expression, and your spirit, that's all you. That's mine. I don't give that to the company that I work for. The truth is, we do straddle between worlds. I know I do. I've mentioned how. Remember that impermanence of the situation. We don't want to take the struggles of work home with us, and we don't want to take the problems of home to work. If we do, and I know several of us that have, I know I've done it, those results can be pretty grim. The Mexican culture I grew up in and surrounded by honored their ancestors this time of year with ofrendas, which were altars built and decorated with marigolds and the ancestors' favorite food and things. My understanding of this tradition is to honor who the ancestor was, including all their joys and their sorrows, all their good and their bad, all their bad, all their goals and all their pain. To learn the lesson of their lives so that you can learn from them and live your best life. It is from this that I'm reminded of the stories and descriptions of the goddess Hecate, who ruled the crossroads of ancient Greece. She is often portrayed as a triple goddess in her own right, each of her faces pointing into a different direction. In my favorite pen and ink drawing of her, she's portrayed as having torches in one set of hands to light the way for those who are lost and in need of direction, a sword in the second set to fight those who would dare lie to her, and a scroll and pen in the last to document those that come and go, their hopes, their wishes, their dreams. I see parallels of myself in her. My role as a minister is to light the path for those who are seeking. My role as protector compels me to protect and care for my family, my friends, and my loved ones. And then there's the role of scholar, my desire for learning and knowledge continuous. Hecate was also the goddess of witches and sorcerers, and she was in herself a judge that she could manipulate which path, and with it, which learning you needed to take. Is there a figure, mythological, fictional, spiritual, or actual, who you can relate to like this? An ancestor. Is there someone you think of when times are hard for you and the weight of the costumes that you wear become too much to bear? Someone whom you can draw strength from when the mask doesn't quite fit, but you need it to. I'd like to challenge you to find this archetype for yourselves. And I'd like to hear each of your decisions. I'm always curious. I think we should all live in curiosity. We all have very busy lives. And it seems more so now that we are so very connected and very scheduled and hopefully very socially distant. While we straddle between worlds, be they home and work, school and church, remember you. Remember the person under the mask, the being who is made of flesh and bone and blood beneath the costume. Costumes are surely important, but if they are too heavy, exhausting you, and not allowing you to breathe, perhaps you're wearing too many layers and you need to lighten your load. Remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said in his essay, Self-Reliance, be yourself. No base imitator of another, but your best self. There is something which you can do better than any other person. Listen to that inward voice and bravely obey that. Do the things that which you were great, not which you were never made for. Think about what that's just said. Do the things for which you were great, not which you weren't made for. Possibly, that means allowing the costume to rip and tear, like I did with that uncomfortable ET jumper that I was forced into for 3 Halloweens in a row many years ago. Those decisions are yours and yours alone to make. I ideally dream of a world where we can live our best selves, free to be who we are without the trappings of a mask or a costume. And I think we're seeing evidence of that now. The supposed, what is it? They're calling it a bereftness or a low amount of people looking for jobs right now. There's a employment gap. There's a need for more people to work. Well, they're tired of wearing those heavy costumes and masks. If you're not going to pay people what they're worth, then why should they have to suffer through it? I preach often, and I preach often about love. I love the concept of love. The idea that love can conquer all, and that as you use, it's love that guides us. James Baldwin said in our centering thought today, love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without and know that we cannot live within. My interpretation of Baldwin's words are this: allow love to guide you. Allow love to define who you are, regardless of the mask that you're wearing or forced to wear. Wear your costume and wear your mask, but wear it as you. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, Chaplain Bloom Ramirez. Good words for us to think of during this time of stress and change. Regretfully, we're out of sequence, but I would like to ask you if you have joys or sorrows to express. We can start with people on Zoom. Is there anyone who would like to share? We share well in this community and support each other.
So at this time, we're going to go ahead and extinguish our chalice. We'll say these words. In our reckless yearning to be safe, we turn again and again away from the blessed security of having nowhere left to hide. Give us the courage to lay ourselves bare. And with that, I say, Amen, Shalom, Salam, Namaste, and blessed be. And it is my understanding that we now will join each other, at least here in the sanctuary, and sing Let There Be Peace on Earth.